you tonight?
I'm doing rather well. How are you, Dr. Helfman?
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad you're here tonight for the didactic because I think it's a really helpful one. Tonight we're going to be looking at our automatic thoughts and how they impact the way that we feel, how they impact what we do, and how we relate with other people. So I think you're going to enjoy it.
Thank you.
Well, what I wanted to talk about is, feelings are part of being human. And what we know is that when you're new to sobriety, oftentimes you feel your emotions pretty intensely. So we wanted to give you some tools to figure out how your thinking is impacting the intensity of your emotion. So you'll see in this slide and in the next slide some of the thinking errors that all of us do. And I just want you to look at them and see if any of them might apply in your life. So for example, we have here all or nothing thinking. Oftentimes you hear people talking about that. It's black or white thinking. So if I get rejected, I feel like I get rejected by everyone. Or if I'm not perfect, then I'm the complete opposite. I'm a failure. Then there's emotional reasoning, which a lot of people do. That's when you let your feelings alone guide you in interpreting your reality. So for example, if I feel sad, my life must be hopeless, or I must be a loser. And then on this screen you'll see a few more. Regret orientation. And regret orientation is when you look into the past, and when you look back there, what you do is you always feel like you should have done something different. You should have done something better. And that oftentimes leads to sadness. And then catastrophizing. You believe that what has happened or will happen will be so awful that you won't be able to tolerate it. So it would be so terrible if I failed. So I'm just wondering, there's many more we're going to discuss tonight, but Kay, can you identify with any of these thoughts?
I think in particular I can really relate with the regret. I have so many regrets because of my addiction, and I know that I could have been in a way different place if I would have started my recovery sooner. And it's sometimes just very difficult to accept where I'm at right now.
Good morning, Kay. How are you? It's good to see you.
I'm doing okay. It's good to see you too, Dr. Helfman.
How did you feel about last night's didactic? Did anything stand out for you?
Well, to tell you the truth, I thought about it a lot after I left the session. And what stood out for me is just my negative thinking and how disturbing it can be at times. I feel that I'm sad, and a lot of that is just through negative self-talk.
So what are you thinking about when you're feeling sad?
I feel, well, I feel sad, but I think that my words are that I'm a loser. And I know that just stems from, all the years that I spent, in addiction. And I keep on thinking, I could have done better. I could have been, quicker to enter recovery. Why did I have to suffer so much consequences before I got here?
Yeah, that must be a very difficult thought to have. And I know, sometimes when we think that our thoughts will help us, even if they're negative and painful to have, are you aware of any advantages of holding on to that thought that you're a loser?
A good question. The only thing that comes to mind is that maybe I'm trying to motivate myself. Maybe I'm trying to remember where I've been so I can somehow catch up, somehow achieve some progress through just telling myself how much I've lost out on.
Well, and on the flip side, can you think of some of the disadvantages of holding on to that thought?
Well, it's exhausting. It's very exhausting, and I don't know. I think it shuts me down. The self-criticism tends to take away from motivation. I just seem like I'm pretty brutal with myself.
Yeah, because as I'm listening to you talk, it seems as though the disadvantages really outweigh the advantages of holding on to that thought. And it impacts you in a pretty significant way. And it actually, as you said, it takes away your motivation as opposed to motivating you. So I'm wondering if in the next week, between now and the next time we meet, if you would be willing to really monitor, be aware of your self-talk, and not just being aware of what it is that you say, but how it's impacting you in your best interest, and how it's working against you. And then we can really focus on changing your self-talk to a much kinder, gentler, even more effective way. Does that sound like something that would be helpful to you?
Well, I think I'm all for anything that's going to make me feel better, because this way of thinking hasn't worked well for me. So yes, I'm willing to monitor my thoughts, and in fact, very much will look forward to seeing you again next week.
Good morning, Judge Mountain. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks, Dr. Helfman. Who do we have next?
Next, we're going to be bringing in Kay Lindor.
Hi, Kay.
Hi, Judge.
And Kay has been doing a really good job in therapy. She's really committing to her recovery. She has kept all of our scheduled telehealth appointments. And in between our appointments, what we've done is we have smaller periodic check-in sessions available to her if she needs them, so that instead of us being reactive to urges she might be having, we're trying to be proactive. So we're using her coping skills to cope ahead. And I really think that her progress is demonstrated in the fact that we are requiring less and less of those in-between session check-ins. And she's maintained her sobriety, and she's working on her treatment goals.
And how long has she been sober?
She's been sober now for 2 months.
So, Kay, how do you like working with Dr. Helfman?
I think Dr. Helfman is the best therapist that I've ever had. And I just find her to be really bright and caring, and I just get a lot of positive feedback. She really has been giving me a lot of tools to work with, and like she said, I'm staying clean and sober, and at one time I didn't think it would be possible to be happy in sobriety, but I think working with Dr. Helfman, I'm feeling a lot of hope now that I can be happy and be clean.
Dr. Helfman, are you in agreement with that assessment, that she can pull this off?
Oh, without question, yeah. I mean, she's been utilizing the skills. She's eager to learn. She's identified, quality of life issues that she wants to continue to work on. So I really feel like she's invested in her treatment, and in making change in her life.
Okay, you think you can see this through to the end?
Yes, yes, most definitely. I think with Beth's help and the tools that she's been teaching me, I think I'm doing really well. And I also wanted to say, Judge Mountain, that I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to be part of the sobriety court. It's changed my life.
Great, that's what we're here for. I'm glad to hear that Dr. Helfman is the right person to lead you through this process. So I appreciate your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you again on our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Helfman, please keep those reports coming in. I think that you're doing good work with Kay, and I'm pleased with the results so far, but I think that in order to make this work, we're going to have to see something from you each week for the next several weeks.
Absolutely.
Good morning, Dr. Helfman.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
I'm great. And yourself?
I'm good. Thank you. So which case would you like to begin with today?
Well, I would like to discuss Betty. Betty is a 32-year-old single female who lives alone. She lives in a popular city, and I mention this because she has a very wide, extensive social circle. She's a graduate of state of Michigan State, excuse me, and she has a MBA and a CPA. Her life seems to circle, well, at one time it circled around sporting events, entertainment, night clubbing, but she was referred to me by sobriety court after her second drunk driving offense in the last 2 years. So that's a little bit of the background.
Okay. And how's she been doing since, I think we talked about her a couple of weeks ago. How has she been doing since then?
Well, she's 4 months into her sobriety, and since she entered treatment, one thing that I have some concern over is she's lost about 40 pounds. I mean, she came in at probably around 160. She's around 120 now. And she stopped socializing with friends because of the triggers that brings about. Mm-hmm. But she's taken up running. And now she's up to about 10 miles a day. But what I found interesting is that last week when she came to see me, she said that one day she had a temperature of 102 and she still felt compelled to do the 10-mile run.
So it sounds like, Linda, you're suspecting that maybe there's some disordered eating or potentially even an eating disorder going on in addition to her substance abuse.
I'm thinking that she's, again, maybe transferring, compulsions.
Hmm. Well, do you know when she had her last physical exam?
Well, the chart says that she hasn't had a physical exam in about 3 years.
Okay. What I'd like to suggest is I'm going to send you a file on some of the labs that need to be drawn when you do suspect that there may be an eating disorder, and I'll send those to you in just a minute, but it's published by the Academy for Eating Disorder, and they're practice guidelines for physicians, because I'm not sure what kind of resources she has up there for doctors that fully understand what to look for. So these guidelines are meant for physicians. So I'm going to send it to you so that you can forward it to your client and encourage her to get a physical exam. Okay? So you should see
Okay.
those on your screen in about in a minute or two. The other thing I'm wondering about is, how we might want to look at changing her treatment plan a little bit to get some more information about how she's doing around these issues, around your concerns. So I'm going to send you also a sheet that perhaps you could introduce in the session that looks something like this, and it'll come through on your screen in a moment, and it's a monitoring sheet.
Okay.
For her to start to record what does a typical day look like for her in terms of food. What time does she eat? What is she eating? Where is she eating? Does she identify feeling out of control around food? And there's some sections in there about whether or not she might be purging or purging through exercise using laxatives or diuretics. So again, presenting this to her in a way that is just to gather information. It's not, a criticism, but just so that, you can best understand the role of these changes in her life.
Okay. That makes perfect sense to me.